Black Anime What If? I'm here to present you with the long-awaited What If Issei was betrayed and got sea monster powers part 3. So last time we left off, Issei had just been sent to the third trial. He's on a boat. All he can see is fog and water. Though, once the creature comes out of the water, it emerges out. And Issei can barely see it because of the fog. He doesn't know what this creature is. And then he hears a voice saying, "You seek revenge. That is actually admirable. You've went through all of this pain just to reach your destination and get revenge on those who have wronged you. I see great potential in you. I will assist you after your training and give you a wonderful power. Well, only enough so that your body doesn't explode. I can't give you too much, though, boy." And he just says, "I'm not a boy. I'm a man on an adventure to get the actual power that he deserves and get everything that was stolen from him." And he screams this on the top of his lungs. The actual monster in the mist was laughing, but Issei could hear laughing all around him. He didn't know where the monster was. The fog was too thick. And he swears he can hear something from under the water. And all of a sudden, the ship is starting to break apart. Issei didn't even know what was happening at this point. He doesn't know where his enemy is, so he can't really fight him. And everything happening is just like crashing around him. He sees reality itself bending and breaking. He sees the sky just cracking. He sees all of this happening, and he's very confused and wondering who the hell this is. And he thinks back that there was a Leviathan that taught him. There was a Hydra. Who the hell is this? Issei, when he was going to the third trial, was expecting the Kraken. But no. It was something far beyond that of the Kraken. Issei is just wondering. So Issei decides, I'm going to go ahead and just go into my Leviathan state. I'll just go underwater and see if I can find him. So Issei goes to the Leviathan mode. He tells Drake to switch to Leviathan mode. So he gets his entire armor on. The fins are on his back. And the Leviathan mode has changed a little. Drastically, actually. The Leviathan armor is now black and blue. And the eyes are completely pitch yellow. Black and blue armor, looking like the balance breaker, but fins are in the back. There's a hole in the bottom of the foot, which he uses to navigate into the water to propel himself faster. For example, it's more like a jet ski. It's more like an actual propeller for him. So Issei jumps in the water, and well, before he could even hit the water, he feels a sharp pain in his head. He feels a massive headache, and he starts to see things. He starts hallucinating. When he gets into the water, he sees thousands and thousands of tentacles, which are grasping at him. And Issei's trying to maneuver around them, but he can't do anything. He's just getting slapped around. And then he sees a giant hand come out from the bottom of the ocean, and it's grasping at him. Issei decides to use his strength and try to get out of the grasp, because it's literally already caught him. The hand has caught him. He's trying to move around in the hand, trying to open up the hand and get out, but he can't. Once he's trying to lift up the hand that's crushing him, nothing happens. It's just going harder and harder to pull upwards until he's eventually just crushed. All of his bones are snapping. He is screaming in agony. The creature is just laughing at his pathetic attempt. And just opens the hand and tosses him through the water until he hits all the way to the bottom of the ocean. And then he looks up before he passes out and has to redo the trial, and sees this creature was at the bottom of the ocean, and he's wondering how the hell he wasn't able to see it. And he's wondering who the hell this is as his consciousness fades, and he wakes up right back on the boat. But before he could wake up, he sees a nightmare. He is walking through a corridor, and the floor is complete mud. He's sinking into the mud, and he's continuously walking, trying to go through the mud, and his hands are popping out of the floor, grabbing onto him. The actual hands are popping out of the ceiling, out of the walls. They're latching onto him. There's thousands of them, millions of them, grasping onto Issei. But Issei just says, "Enough of this," and goes into Leviathan form and propels himself out of the mud, just barely escaping all the hands, and sees a door at the end, and is about to reach towards the door, but he hears a familiar voice. "Issei, you're so pathetic. This is the reason why I got rid of you." He turns around and sees Rias. Anger fills with him, and he screams out, "I will kill you. I will kill you." And Drake goes berserk for a minute. Drake literally, instead of saying boost, or instead of shouting anything that would have been normal, says purge, 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 and starts screaming this. Everything around starts disintegrating, and he runs towards Rias with anger in his eyes, and Rias starts distorting into a giant figure and turns into this being in front of him, and Issei halts, and he can't move, and the creature says, "Pathetic. You let yourself be consumed by anger. So if you end up going into the living world, all you're going to do is sabotage your own revenge. You need to control your anger. You need to be like a calm ocean. A very calm ocean on the beach. And whenever you approach them, you need to be calm, collected. And you need to, once their guard is down, strike them like a tsunami and drown them." And Issei agrees with this, but for some reason is paralyzed, he can't move. Then Cthulhu said, "I think the only way that I can actually put this through your mind is to consistently torture you." So Cthulhu, which he introduces himself as Cthulhu, and he says, "We're currently in your mental space. I will train you for a few million years in your mind, and then you will fight me again. Each time you fail, you will consistently. Also, you don't have to defeat me. All you have to do is just land a single punch anywhere on my face." Which Issei in his mind was thinking that's pretty much impossible, and Cthulhu could sense that he said this in his mind by telepathy, and said, "It's not impossible. I was defeated. That's the reason why I'm in here with the other two. We were all sealed here by one entity. That entity held the power that was beyond the infinite, beyond the void, beyond the gods. And Issei was shocked, and wanted to ask who it was, but Cthulhu said, I will not tell you, you must meet him yourself. Because you will one day have to duel him. I can tell it. Because your eyes, they don't just spell out hatred for those who betrayed you, they spell out hatred for this wretched world. And I like those eyes. I don't want you to change. It starts laughing maniacally. Issei is shivering. He doesn't know why. But then he thinks about what he said his name was Cthulhu. And Issei yells out, aren't you an evil god? And Cthulhu said, why yes I am, the most evilest you can think of. And Issei said, then why are you helping me? And Cthulhu said, maybe it's for entertainment or something else, but does it really matter? And Issei says, no it doesn't. Make me stronger. I just want power. I don't care what your endgame is. But if you cross me, I will find a way to destroy you. And Cthulhu laughs at this statement, saying, that's impossible, but you may try. And Issei smiles at the challenge. They train in his mental state, and for millions and millions of years, he sees all the torture, all of the memories of before he was betrayed, all of the kind and happiness, which Issei thought was real. And he was crying a little, and anger and hatred was boiling inside of him. But after a few million years, it drifted away. And Issei was then shown the memories of when he was betrayed, the exact moments, the smiles on their faces. And Issei just got more furious and furious as time went on. But he held his anger, and his anger wasn't anger anymore. It was a calm, collected fury that he could control at will. And Cthulhu thought he is ready. After 5.2 million years, he is ready. So he lets Issei out of the nightmare. And Issei wakes up and he's still on the boat. But he's very, very sore. And his bones are quite stiff. Because he's been in sleep for 5.2 million years. His body isn't malnourished because his cells were constantly regenerating because of the Hydra blood that made his body. His body has regeneration properties. He's very tough to kill. But to Cthulhu, Issei was just a mere ant still. Because he could easily crush the Leviathan at full strength with just a one little finger. And the Hydra, all he had to do was stare at it and it would just disintegrate. If he ever used any of his true power, even a mere fraction. And Issei came to know this, and didn't really care. He knows he had to fight him, but he knew if he beat him, or even got a single punch on him, he'd prove he was the strongest being that would be in the world. Aside from that one being that Cthulhu told him about. And Issei got up, stretched, and Cthulhu arrives from the ocean with fog all surrounding him, and said, "Are you ready to fight me again?" And Issei has fought him for about 5.2 million years. Mainly because after every million years, he's fought him only 5 times. Because every million years, he would let him out of the nightmare to fight him, to see if he was ready. And he was not. Issei looks at Cthulhu and says, "I am ready." And Cthulhu says, "I don't think you are. Why don't you show me?" And Cthulhu roars. The tentacles on his face start rushing at Issei. Issei jumps on the tentacles, starts running up towards it at blinding speeds, Cthulhu could still see this, but if it was Leviathan, Leviathan couldn't see this, nor could Hydra, if they were watching. Which they were. They couldn't see this, and they were astonished of his growth. And Issei rushed very quickly. The thing is, Leviathan and Hydra couldn't see this without exerting a little bit of power, about 1%. Which that 1% of Leviathan and Hydra's power would be about towards Sir Zex. Sir Zex's, not even Sir Zex's, it would be about Orpheus's power. So, Issei is at blinding speeds rushing towards Cthulhu. Cthulhu just scoffs and says, "This is pathetic." Just lifts out his hand very quickly and slaps Issei away. Issei flies about 500,000 meters away, and before he could even touch the water, Cthulhu emerged from the other side. In a mere blink of Issei's eyes, he sees him, and Cthulhu says, "This is gonna hurt a lot," and laughs. All of his tentacles come out of his face, and some out of his mouth, and they pierce Issei, and his legs, arms, his neck, his heart, and they're ripping him limb from the inside. Issei can feel all this, but he doesn't gasp in pain or scream. He's over the limits of pain tolerance. He doesn't feel a damn thing. And he just in his mind, before he gets ripped to shreds, all of his limbs fall into the ocean. He says, looks like I gotta do a lot more training. And Cthulhu is amused because usually humans would laugh. Well, not laugh, but they'd sometimes laugh in insanity from the pain. Or sometimes they would just give up. Or they would just go into despair, but he is not. Cthulhu finds him amusing. So once they're in the mental state, he trains for about 5 million more years, fails again, trains for another 5 million, fails again, consistently fails over 500 times. It's already 5 quintillion years and he's failed all of them. Couldn't land a single punch into Cthulhu, which is understandable, but Cthulhu is not disappointed in Issei, because Cthulhu thought this was a meaningless task in the beginning. But once Issei started progressing more and more, thought he could actually lay a hit on Cthulhu. And Issei, once he was out of the nightmare once again, the same nightmares, gets up, stands up, and he's on the boat, looks at Cthulhu dead in the eyes and says, "I have finally managed to make it to where I can hit you at least once." And Cthulhu laughs and says, "Do you really think that you, a human, well, I can't say human anymore, you're something else. You still think that you can beat me, the most evilest god, the one who has snuffed out billions of lives, like it was a mere ant, like they were mere ants. You think you can lay a single hit on me? No one has done this, except for one. And that person, just to defeat me, had to seal me away, couldn't even beat me. He sealed me, though he earned a little bit of my respect. Will you be the second person to earn my respect?" Cthulhu was laughing at Issei, and Issei said, "I know that you think that it's impossible to hit you, but I will always make the impossible a reality." And he screams this out at Cthulhu. Leviathan and Hydra are watching in anticipation, thinking that Issei is quite the person, quite the being, entity that they have trained, and they're very proud of him. They look at him more like a son that they trained, or a son that's going off to college. That's what they're actually saying. And they're proud of Issei. And Issei and Cthulhu start to fight. Issei goes into Leviathan form immediately, on default, and just propels himself into the air, uses the bottom of his feet as jetpacks, essentially. Just flies with his feet, because he no longer has wings, and just propels himself towards Cthulhu. Cthulhu just scoffs at this because he's tried this numerous times. And Cthulhu just opens his mouth, has thousands and thousands of tentacles aiming at Issei at blinding speeds. And Issei can't see them, obviously. He can't see them. Because Leviathan and Hydra can't even see them. But he can sense them at this point, because it was in a repeated pattern. So Issei is dodging one of them, two of them, three of them, and all of a sudden he just dodges all of them. And Cthulhu is impressed and says, "Can you handle this then?" And he does one thing that Issei's never seen. Cthulhu opens up his entire skin, and all of the tentacles flow out of them, and they start launching at him. There's billions of them. And Issei thinks in his mind, "I can't dodge this, but I don't have to dodge it." Issei just closes his eyes, and Cthulhu thinks he's accepting his fate of losing to Cthulhu. But Issei closes his eyes and smiles a sinister grin, which even made Cthulhu slightly shudder a little, but he doesn't know why. And then Issei says, "Drake, unlock the new mode that we have." This mode was already touched on before, but he has something called the Purge mode. He dons a completely pitch black armor. Drake is no longer red, he's black and dyed in Issei's hatred towards not just the Reus Grimmery family, not just Azazel, fallen angels, or anyone, or even Michael himself for damning him and not protecting him, or saving him, or his parents for abandoning him. No, this was the hatred that would eventually dye the whole world in the color of black, just like his soul. His soul was no longer pure, but no longer in pure happiness or anything like that. It was in pure hatred. And Cthulhu knew this. Cthulhu watched Issei charge towards the tentacles with his Purge mode, and he just says, "Drake, use Purge." Drake was using Purge, and all the tentacles that went towards him just disappeared like they were nothing. They just disintegrated into nothing. Issei was launching towards Cthulhu more and more, getting closer and closer, was about to punch Cthulhu, but all of a sudden he was in a trance. But he snaps out of it almost immediately. But the Cthulhu is not in front of him. Cthulhu is behind him and says, "Wow, so you finally got out of the trance." And Issei was confused, but then realizes one thing that makes him say, "God damn it." He realizes the entire time, the millions and quintillions of years he was fighting Cthulhu, he was fighting an illusion of Cthulhu. And Issei is disheartened, but looks behind him and just rushes immediately at Cthulhu. And Cthulhu laughs and says, "I guess I'll actually play with you now." And billions of tentacles pop out of the water, and Issei cannot purge them all. There's too many. They're piercing him, but Issei keeps on going. There are millions of tentacles inside of him. He's regenerating with the Hydra's regeneration, but he's also slowly dying still. But he's still rushing towards Cthulhu. Cthulhu can commend him because of his perseverance. And literally, Issei is getting closer and closer towards Cthulhu, but Cthulhu thinks he's going to die at any moment. But just in case, decides to literally make a barrier around Issei and starts slowly crushing him with the barrier. And the barrier is made of reality itself. But Issei screams out, "If reality goes against me, I just need to purge reality itself." And Drake says, "Purge." And the reality barrier that was around Issei just shatters. This surprises Cthulhu. Cthulhu laughs a little, saying, You've already done one of the impossibles. You managed to purge reality and shatter it with your own hatred towards the wretched world. I am impressed. And he says this, but he was underestimating Issei a lot. Because once he looks back at Issei's not there anymore. Cthulhu immediately knows where Issei went, but right when he was about to react, Issei already punched Cthulhu right in the jaw, right under Cthulhu. Just punched him. And Cthulhu said, I guess you have done the impossible. Kind of ticks me off, but a deal is a deal. What power do you desire from me? And Cthulhu is thinking he's going to pick space or time or something. But no. Issei says, I want the power to give people nightmares. Which this piques Cthulhu's interest, actually. And he asks why he would want such a power. And Issei just laughs and jumps out of the water onto the boat and says, because on this boat you've given me nightmares for quintillions of years. I want to give nightmares to this world that has forsaken me. The Grimmeries who have betrayed me. The family that I thought was my own, but just up and abandoned me. And all the people who looked down on me. I want them to see nightmares of me ripping them to shreds before I actually appear and see their twisted eyes with fear and agony while I rip them shreds to shreds. And he maniacally laughs. Cthulhu is happy about this outcome and says, I will now make a portal and send you to the living world. You already had a body that was made of the Hydra. You have a piece of the Leviathan soul which forged into you, and it made your sacred gear have a second form, and I will give you my nightmare abilities. And a dark orb goes up towards Issei. Issei grabs the orb, and he feels a darkness that goes into his very soul, his very being. He doesn't scream, though. He welcomes the darkness into him. And he says, why, thank you, Cthulhu. And Cthulhu said, alright, now run along into the portal. Issei walks into the portal and is sent to the living world. Cthulhu watches him while he goes out. And Cthulhu says, finally, someone that can complete my plan. And then we switch points of view to Issei. Literally, Cthulhu sent a portal through space and time, and it takes him all the way to where he was right when he was killed. Right where he was killed is just placed there. It's already been a whole entire new year. It was a year already. And Issei was understandably wondering what time it was. So he decides to, go into the city. Walks into the city. He sees an actual clock, and it's about 7 p.m. already. And he walks up towards a person and says, what day is it? And he says, oh, it's already August. And he just says, what's the year? And then he just says the year. Says, oh wow, it was a year already. And he doesn't really think about this. He tries to find a place to, make his hideout. And he thinks of one thing. The Fallen Angel Church. The church where the fallen angels were. That'd be the perfect hideout. So he just goes there. And that's where I'm going to end the actual video. Issei has finally came back. And he's found a base in the Fallen Angel Church. So, I'm sorry if the video was short or if it was too long, I can't really tell. But, I hope you guys enjoyed it though.